I want to show you how I added a well to the additional to the well that I've got on my bench. I wanted another one which I've used for a few years and found that it's very handy for more permanent stowage of your mortise gauges, marking gauges, your chisel trays and things like that. Things that are a little bit more awkward where you want to keep this working area clear. So we're going to add this on the outside of that, and what we're going to add is I have 3 pieces of wood exactly the same length as my workbench. So you'll do the same if you're going to do this. And this is basically it. The bottom gets screwed to these 2 side pieces, and then we're going to put a divider in here and a divider in here with what we call a tapered housing, so it's not parallel all the way down. And so we're going to put those in. Then when this is together as a unit, we're going to drop this over here, clamp it to the bench and screw this to the apron, and that will give us that extra storage we need. So first of all, let's put these 2 together. We're going to focus on the joinery for this. This is 2 housing dados, but they taper. That means that they are 1/4 of an inch deep at the bottom, but at the top, but at the bottom edge they feather to the outside edge, so they don't have a housing dado all the way fully enclosed to the full depth. First, flush this end here, whichever end, and then I measured up 15 inches from the end here. That gave me the exact position I wanted. I'm just going to use a square and a knife, and I'm going to go no more than that 1/4 of an inch onto this far piece and onto my new piece here. So I've gone across the 2 pieces. And I'm doing the same from the other end. This is arbitrary. You could do whatever you want. You may have a specific set of tools or series of things that you want to store on your bench. So I've done the same because I found that that works for me. Now the well itself, how I engineered my sizing was, this goes on here and my upstands come on either side. So I can drop this into any of my tool trays of 5 inches or thereabouts. They drop in there, and then I can slew them side to side or pull them all the way out and use them if I want to. So I have to cut 4 housing dados on here now. So from that one line, we're going to go down right the way across with a squared across line. We're taking the pieces that we're going to use in here. So this is my recess piece here, make a mark and then run another line onto this one. So I'm going to cut this one. So this is my top edge, this is going to go in here. I'm going to square some lines across here because these can't be permanent yet, like this. And I'm going to run a gauge. I'm going to set the gauge to 1/4 of an inch. So I set the pin, the point of the pin, to my 1/4 of an inch mark and run the gauge line right in between those 2 pencil lines, like that. And I do the same on all the other 3 as well, exactly the same. Into the vise, this is safety. Clamp it. And then a wide chisel, a 1-inch chisel will work great. Chisel hammer. Just chisel into the knife wall. And you can do both at the same time in this case, as long as you've got that nice and tight, like this. And instead of chiseling down, we're going to use the saw like this, right up against the side of the knife wall. And I've got my saw tilted. So I'm going down into my 1/4 inch line on this side. But on your side, on that side, I haven't gone into it barely at all because I want it from 0 to 1/4 of an inch. So 3 of those, and we've got it. What we're going to do is go with a 1/2 inch chisel right in between. Start about 1/8 of an inch down and just pop it with the heel of your hand, like that. Go down in increments of about 1/16. And I'm in the groove now. I'm right in my 1/4 inch groove. Go gently on your hands. If your hands are not toughened up, just go with your chisel hammer. Here I'm doing this jabbing action until I feather out at the far end. So here I'm going to feather out there now. So I've got 0 on your side and 1/4 of an inch down on my side. Just chisel these out. And we just want the other 3 doing exactly the same. Once those are cut, we're ready to assemble. I'm ready to install these, fix these to the base piece, so I've got them ready. What we're going to do is we're going to be screwing these from the underside. So what I'm going to do is set my finger gauge to 3/8 of an inch. That's going to put this in the center of the piece of wood that's going on here. And go ahead and run a gauge line down here. This is just going to pop the center of the screw hole that I drill through here. I'm going to put 5 holes on each side. So the same on this side. That means the screw is going to be in the center of my uprights. So we'll go ahead and drill those holes first. So what I do, I'm just going to start 2 inches in from either end, like this. And you can measure if you want to. Find the middle. I usually find the middle by eyeballing it, but you can just balance it like this. I balanced it with my fingers then. And then set your finger on here and eyeball the center of that one, like that. And that's going to be plenty close enough. I suppose we could measure it as well if you want to. That's entirely up to you. And I'm going to drill a 3/16 hole on each of those centers, like this. So I'm not going into my bench top, I'm stopping the drill from bursting through. Before I put those together, I'm going to countersink it from the underside. That just helps to seat the screw. Makes a neat finish. And then, before I assemble this, I'm going to put holes in this end. This is the end to my right when I'm facing my bench, when I'm facing my back vise. I've got these mapped out. I've got 5 holes on one side and 4 on the other. And what they represent are the holes that I want to pop in here to put my gauges in place. So I've got 5 one side. Then I staggered them, offset them half the distance. And how I established this distance was I just put my stock on here and rotated it to see where I could orient them to get the best. I've got 9 gauges that I want to house in here, but I actually will probably only house 4 at a time, and I just want to be able to use any of the holes. Sometimes if you're using a mortise gauge like this, you'll have this extra stem you have to accommodate. But I'm going to drill a 1-inch hole, which is way bigger than the actual stem. I've learned that if you make them too tight, they tend to bind when they go into the hole. So I've got my holes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In between those, I've come here and I've come in 2 inches from the edge of my board. This may vary because your gauges may be different, so you'll have to lay yours out however best you can. So I'm going to bore my holes with a 1-inch bit on those crosshairs. As soon as that snail comes through from the end of the bit, I withdraw my bit and turn around and come from the other side. That way I don't get any tear out or ugly fibers that are uncut. So here I'm coming from the other side. And normally I would go all the way alongside one side halfway and then turn it around, come the other. I'm going to finish these off and then we'll get back and we'll screw this thing together. To accommodate the mortise gauge, usually you have this little nub on here, or on some you do, so this has to be accommodated here. To deal with that, I'm just going to have a couple of holes where I have my mortise gauges taken care of. And what I do is I come about 1/2 inch from the rim of the hole, pop a line, and then here, all the way down into the body of wood underneath. And no more than that, and you have that recess cut. Then you can pop this in here, and there it is. There is your recess cut. So I've got one more to do because I have 2 or 3 gauges. So here, set your distance, that 1/2 inch from the rim. Come in about halfway, all the way through onto that solid piece of wood. Halve the distance again, and then into your last cut here. And you can always micro adjust that if you need to, but that's how we take care of that. Now we can drop our gauges in wherever they hit, and you can twist and turn them according to where you want them, just like that. The next bit is as simple as it gets. 5 screws, 1 bead of glue along here, and technically you really don't need to glue this at all along here because this is not really holding a lot, but it just seats everything if we're doing it this way. So which way would I do this? Let me do this so that you can see. This is my inside face. This is the bottom of my piece. This is also the bottom of my piece. So I'm going to put this on here. Need to lift up a little bit. I've got my screws ready. Here somewhere. And I've got my drill driver ready. So work along, because if these pieces are not straight, you can straighten them out with the bottom piece. Just by pulling the piece till it's flush. that one. And a bead of glue on this one. I'm just going with a straight one rather than a wiggly one. I don't need a wiggly on this. Nice and flush. If there's a movement, like this one is just ever so slightly past the face there, just go in with your hammer and tap it while the glue is still wet, and that will deal with that. And that's basically how this comes together. There we've got the well ready to go in place. We've just got these sections here to cut and fit, but these have yet to be cut down to length. We'll do that in a short while. So this is going to go on my bench this way so that my marking gauges are to my right. My chisel tray will drop in here. It's not quite dropping in perfectly, but it's close, and I can plane off whatever I need to make it fit. But remember, these could be in tight at the top and the right distance at the bottom. So I'm ready to clamp this to my bench top, to the apron. So I'm going to do that now, I think. What I'm going to do is drill my holes here. I'm going to just have one hole in each of these, about an inch down from the top, like that, and it's angled, which is a good thing because it's going to be angled. These are all that are going to hold this onto the bench. So the screw holes are ready. Make a little space here so that we can use the clamps. I've got one clamp ready. I need 2 or 3 maybe. So this goes on here like this, and it's going to be flush with each end, all being well. You don't have to have it perfect just right now. You can just put this on and get the clamp on like this and cinch that tight, and then you can drive your screws, and you can tap this after you've got these tight. You can tap adjust it, like here it needs to go down, and it also needs to go along to my right, like this. And this comes up here. There. So I'm flush there. I'm not flush on the end here. Now I'm flush. This one needs to come up. Flush, flush. And you can always come in after, if you leave it a little way above, you can always come in and plane it down flush too. I'm fine there, I'm happy with that. So 2 screws, there's not a lot of weight in this even when it's fully loaded. So come in with your screws. That takes care of that. And you can put more screws in if you want to, but you won't need really any more than that. So that's that. So the only thing left now is to put the dividers in. In all of that I've shown you so far, this is the trick. What we're going to do is we're going to create, you know, these angles on each side, they rake in from each side, and the reason we do that is so we can put glue into the recess, and when we slide this down, it's not actually touching the end until it finally seats in the bottom of the recess. That's why we've done it this way. So I'm going to make a mark on here. That was a 1/4 inch taper, so I'm going to mark here 1/4 inch onto that point there, and then I'll put this in pencil so you can see, but I'm going to use a knife wall. So there, I'm going to have this angle on here. So to make this easier, I'm going to set my sliding bevel to this angle so that I can use this to create my knife wall. Just like this. Stand up on the end. Second knife wall, and then I unite this corner here with this knife nick that came from the square across line like this, and I pull my knife wall for the second wall there. I'm going to put this in the vise. I can saw this about 2/3 of the way down before it actually will break out, because there's not enough fibre on the outside to support me. But it'll be near enough. Like that. And I'm careful here because this top edge is the part that's going to be seen, and I don't want to fracture that when I plane. So I'm just going to go with my plane here. Back my iron off to a shallow cut. Now this only hits that top edge on the last stroke. So I'm looking for my knife wall here. To make sure I'm staying on the line, which I did. Now I take this and I put this top edge, this is going to go in this way, so this actually goes into the recess this way. Turn it over, push it right, nudge it right up against that edge, and there I can get the exact distance here for the overall length. And then I go to my sliding bevel again, and I create the cork in a bottle, so it's narrower on the side you are on than my side. So it's tapered, square onto the top or the bottom, flip over and make my knife wall. Into my vise again. Right onto the wall. Like that. A little tiny bit of planing probably. A bit more than that. I'm going to come from the other side now. And that should take me exactly to the length that I want. So when I press this into the recess like this, I've got a good tight joint. I've got to go a little bit more yet, but this is ready to drive home. I'm not ready to drive it home. I'm going to cut my second one, and then we'll drive them both home together. Gluing this last bit in is the finale, and I've avoided using screws, but you could glue this and screw it if you want to. I'm going to put my glue on this piece of wood and on the bottom edge, because nothing really touches all together. It will if I'm unsteady with my hand, but that doesn't really matter. So I go down in here like this, and then most of the glue is going to be exactly where I need it. All the way down like that. And then I'm going to add the clamps here, which is going to give me the clamping pressure I need. Close up all the joint and leave that overnight, and that's permanent for about 100 years. So I'm perfectly happy with this. There it is. That gives it all kinds of added. Now you could put the glue in the recess too, if you're any good with it. I find it better on here. I'm going with this one. And down into here. And that's it, we're done with this little tool tray. We can put our chisels and even our planes in there, marking gauges, mortise gauges, rasps and everything else. And that's it, we're finished with this. We need to apply some finish to match to the rest of the bench. I'll do that when I've done all of my adjustments, all of my accessorizing. I'll add the finish that I need, and that will be done.